here and continue positioning all of our pieces. So this is kind of where we were at before. Again, remember the cards are quite a bit smaller than our cylinders, so we'll need to work on that. Now this little card right here, as you can see, is actually a big card with a little image on it. So we can fix that by coming in here, and right in between the pre-molt node and the card, we can add a transform node. That way we can scale this little image up and make it fit the card better. And then we can scale the card up and down. And it's going to be just a kind of a truer representation of the space. So let's just hover over the empty area of our node graph, hit the tab key and type in transform. And then I'll just drop that between those two pipes. And I'm going to scale this up pretty far. And you can see when I scale it up far, it begins to disappear because it's going off the edge of that card. Then as I'm going to kind of rotate around here so you can see this a little bit better without me running into one of my cylinders. If I select the card, you can see now this is filling up the space of that card much better. But I think we could even make this a little bit larger still. So I'm going to go a little bit bigger and then kind of reposition that again in the middle. Perfect. Let's go ahead and clear our properties bin. Kind of rotate back around here. And you can see if I get up close to this, we've got, a pretty pixelated image. But that's okay because we're going to open up that card and then turn down our uniform scale so that that's a much smaller, easier to manage card. And now I can just take this over here and begin manipulating this in space to kind of place it in that little hole that we're looking at here. Great, so you can kind of see what I'm going for as I'm trying to get that into position. And we'll be able to work with this a little bit more. I'm just kind of getting my initial positioning set up for now. We'll want to kind of rotate that so it sort of fits just right in there. Perfect. Okay, so we'll deal with that a little bit more later on. We might even want to use our RotoPaint node to kind of make this area a little bit more like this cliff face rather than this piece right here. So that's something we might do. But you can see now that we get this really nice parallax of being able to see that gap getting bigger as our camera kind of rotates. And we'll be adding our camera later on, but let's just finish kind of roughing this in a little bit. Okay, so we've got these two images, those two cylinders right there. I can just kind of draw a box around those, kind of come up in here. You can see that's both of those. So I can really only move one of them at a time, but I'll go ahead and grab them both and kind of pull them back behind there. And we'll just kind of get this into view so we can sort of see what it would look like if we were looking through a camera, even though we haven't gotten one of those set up yet. And you can kind of see how far away those cylinders are and really what they need to look like, how much closer they need to get, that sort of thing. So we'll go ahead, and we know that this one, let's kind of come in over here. This one right here is the one that we want to have on the left, and then this one is the kind of further back one over here on the right. So right now they're sort of inverted, so we need to rotate them back around. So I'm going to grab this one and rotate it just like that, and then we'll do the same for this right here. Okay, so let's see how that turned out. Looks like I rotated it just a little bit too far, so I'll pull that back around just like that. And now we're getting somewhere. Now those are really kind of getting into place where they need to be. So if I kind of just position right in here, you can sort of see what this is starting to look like. And if I'm rotating like this, kind of how that feels with the background. That's really working nicely for me. Okay, we've still got one more piece, which is this one right here. And we'll want to kind of come in here. We'll open up that cylinder, rotate that around just like this so those pieces are facing the front. And and then just kind of pulling that in. You can see this is still a little bit too big. So let's come into our uniform scale and kind of drop that down a little bit. And we may want to do that with the background pieces, except they are so much further back, we may need them to be a little bit larger. Honestly, they're probably a little bit too far back. So one thing we can do is kind of pull it forward a little bit more. And then if we start to come in here and notice that they are just looking way too big, then we can start to fix that. So you can see kind of how this image is coming back together now, except now it is in 3D space, which is really exciting. Now this piece I feel like should be a little bit taller, so we can go into our Y. As you can see, it's actually kind of messed up a little bit in its oh, excuse me, rather, this is the rotation. I'm looking at this field right here. So what I'd like to do is maybe put that at a 2, or if that's way, that really looks way too stretched. So let's just try something like a 1.2. So just making it a little bit taller than it naturally was. You're not going to be able to see much of that stretch, and it's going to just kind of fit in there better. Okay, that's looking really nice. Now, again, I think that these are a little bit too big, so I'm going to come in to both of those, and we'll just kind of turn down that uniform scale, just making sure that you open it by double clicking that, and then we can start to really see these kind of all in the context of the same space a little bit better, just because before they really felt like they were just so much bigger. It was hard to tell what was going on, and we may need to make them bigger again, because you can see that now we're kind of going to start having an issue with being able to see more of the background than we want to see. So we can play around with that some more. I'm really not too interested in being able to see that little path that was down here. I think it actually adds to it that this feels just kind of like a bottomless pit on this side, rather than trying to, bring that back in and give that space, that feeling. So let's grab this one. We'll turn back up the scale just a little bit, maybe pull it back a little bit further. So by having these pulled back at different points in space, we are helping that parallax to really begin selling that motion. And now this still feels a little bit too close, so I'm going to pull that back. So it's at about the same distance as this piece over here. So then we are really going to start to feel that our camera is kind of looking in this way. So as we kind of rotate through here, we're going to start getting this type of motion. Really, really nice. Okay, so let's come back in our next lesson, add our camera, and then we'll really be able to tell if we've positioned these correctly and start making some fine tuning to this just kind of roughed in placement and size that we have set up right now. So let's come back in the next lesson, add our camera, and